Alaa Abd El Fata, an Egyptian-born activist who picked up a British passport in 2021, is being sent to Britain from his imprisonment in Egypt. These are his own words from his X, formerly Twitter account, going back to 2009. Yes, we've got them all, even though they were, well, he tried to delete them, didn't he? Here we go. Yes, I consider killing any colonialists, and especially Zionists, heroic. We need to kill more of them. Random shooting of white males should convince them racism costs lives. I rejoice when Zionists are killed. Police are not human. They don't have rights. We should just kill them all. Dear international PhD student, by the way, I'm a racist. I don't like white people, so you know, you got the rest of it there. And this little gem. So, the brilliant British dogs and monkeys really think terrorists will reveal their plans on Twitter. That is just a few examples, not even a full litany of Alaa Abd El Fattah's public posts where he spews raw anti-Semitism, celebrates the murder of innocent civilians, calls for killing police and brands British people as dogs and monkeys. Yet, here comes Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, gushing with delight. He said in a statement today on X, I'm delighted that Alaa Abd El Fattah is back in the UK and has been reunited with his loved ones. Alaa's case has been a top priority for my government. I'm grateful to President Sisi for his decision to grant the pardon. David Lammy, Yvette Cooper and many Labour ministers and MPs have rolled out the metaphorical red carpet for this hate preacher. But surprise, surprise, this rot started under the last government. The previous Tory Home Office appeared to rubber stamp his British citizenship in 2021. He wasn't even here, by the way. He was in prison in Egypt. And James Cleverly, as Foreign Secretary, now, of course, a shadow frontbencher for the Tories, boasted he was working tirelessly to bring this man home, as he calls it. Governments, regardless of party, have barred individuals from the UK for extreme views that often seem less provocative than El Fattah's tweets. Well, Dutch MP Geert Wilders was banned in 2009. 3 anti-Islam activists were blocked by the Tories in 2018. And Ronald Camus, creator of the Great Replacement theory, was denied entry by Labour this year. Hundreds of thousands of your taxpayer pounds flying diplomats, lobbying Cairo, have been used to the campaign for the British states to import this man into our country so he can keep vomiting this poisonous, anti-Semitic, anti-British bile on our streets. And there's even more egg on the face of Keir Starmer. Alaa's account has been reposting Guardian journalists. One of them slammed him for daring to thank President Sisi of Egypt, the very man who pardoned him. What an utter clown show. The man isn't even thankful. The people running his account don't seem to be. It's also important to note that both the BBC and Sky News have failed to include any of this information I've just told you in their articles regarding Alaa Abd El Fata. Their articles read a little bit more like puff pieces than solid journalism. El Fata should never, ever have been handed out a British passport. He should never have been allowed through our borders. And frankly, let's not forget this. This government locks people up here for far less than what he said, don't they? Yet they've spent all this money bringing this vile piece of work to Britain. What an utter joke. They're happy to flood our country with hate as long as it fits their virtue signalling agenda. I'm sick of it, and British people are sick of it too.
There's nothing more important than keeping your money and your identity safe online. And with so many VPN options available, choosing the right one can be pretty daunting. But this video's sponsor, ExpressVPN, is making the choice easier for GB News viewers. ExpressVPN is offering up to 75% off, plus 4 extra months free. That's top-level security from just £2.49 a month, and you're covered by their 30-day money-back guarantee. So just click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code now. Remember, when you're online, you are often sharing personal data, so hackers can steal your information, your passwords, your photos, and your bank details in just seconds. But ExpressVPN encrypts your connection, making it virtually impossible for hackers to access your personal information. So why choose ExpressVPN? Well, it couldn't be easier to use. With just one click, you are protected. And ExpressVPN uses military-grade AES 256 encryption, which is the same standard trusted by the US government to guard their classified information. With their new tiered plans, you can protect up to 14 devices at once and manage passwords securely. Live chat support is available 24/7, and it typically connects you in under a minute with a real person. Click the link in this video's description or scan the QR code to get up to 75% off ExpressVPN, plus 4 months extra for free. Start protecting yourself today with ExpressVPN.
Joining me now is Shadow Justice Minister Robert Jenrick. Robert, thank you so much for joining me this evening. This has really infuriated me, what's happened here today. I want to ask you, first of all, why you felt compelled to write to the Prime Minister about this issue.
Well, good evening, Alex. I was absolutely livid when I heard that this vile piece of work is going to be coming to our country, potentially living at taxpayers' expense for years to come. As you say, a little look at his Twitter account reveals everything you need to know about this man. He says he hates white people. He says that the Brits are monkeys. He says that Zionists deserve to die. He says that the police are not human beings and should be killed. He said during the London riots that the city and Downing Street should be set on fire. He's denied the Holocaust. On and on and on it goes. And yet we saw last night the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary of our country rejoicing at the fact this man was coming here, bragging that they'd achieved some kind of diplomatic coup, that someone who basically hates Britain, hates everything that we stand for, is now going to be coming here to roam our streets and live potentially the rest of his life amongst us. It is an absolute disgrace. It tells you everything you need to know about this Labour government, and it has to be stopped if we can. I think this man's citizenship should be revoked, and he should be made to live in Egypt or, frankly, anywhere else in the world other than the UK.
I totally agree with you, Robert. I was genuinely angry reading this stuff today, and I'm sure many British people will be infuriated at home. I have to ask you about one of your fellow Shadow frontbenchers, James Cleverly, who's previously tweeted that he was tirelessly working to get the release of this man. And, of course, one of your fellow Tory MPs, Alicia Kearns, who has been advocating for him to come back to Britain. She said now he must be returned home to his child in Brighton, who needs their daddy home. That was Alicia Kearns. This, of course, is James Cleverly's tweet here. Do you condemn their statements on bringing this man, well, at least Alicia Kearns, who wants to bring this man to Britain? Do you condemn any of that, Robert?
Well, look, you'd have to ask them. It may be that they didn't know that this man was a rampant, flagrant anti-Semite and that he'd said all of these appalling things in the past, and he'd been subject to the controversies that he has. I just don't know is the honest answer, Alex. But what I can say is he should never have been given British citizenship in 2021, and I'm ashamed that the last Conservative government did that. The officials at the Foreign Office, who have wasted hundreds and hundreds of hours of their time, which they should have been spent pursuing genuine British interests, should hang their heads in shame that instead they sought to bring this man to the United Kingdom, a very country that he appears to despise. It tells you everything you need to know about the failure of the British state in recent years. Our diplomats do not seem to understand what our actual interests are. They're almost acting against the interests of the British people. And your viewers watching tonight will think that they are mugs, paying for these people to be out there on the world stage, supposedly representing us, when in fact they're doing us harm.
Robert, many people will be wondering how this man got a passport. In 2021, he was in prison in Egypt. That's when the British government issued him a passport. That was under the previous government. I believe Boris Johnson was Prime Minister at the time. They'll be wondering why, with all the record of his tweets, which is very public information, who on earth authorised this? Why is, if you're right and saying that actually perhaps people like James Cleverly and Alicia Kearns weren't aware of his tweets, which then we should extend that same justice to the Prime Minister, who may not have also been aware too and has made his statements, of course. If that's the case, where does the blame lie here? Why does this rot keep happening in Britain? Why are people allowed to get passports that should never, ever be allowed to have passports in the first place, let alone have the British government lobbying for them?
Well, look, I've said in the letter I've written to the Prime Minister today that if he didn't know the full past of this man, then he should fess up and withdraw his endorsement for him. He should say that he no longer welcomes him to the United Kingdom and, in fact, do everything he can to prevent him from coming here, if that's possible at this late stage in the process. But there's clearly been a massive failure here. The fact that Foreign Office and presumably Home Office officials as well have studied and worked on this file for years and years and either knew about his past or were ignorant of it, in which case it was gross negligence. And I think we deserve, or the British public deserve, to know which of those it is and how we can ensure this doesn't happen again in the future. I think that there is incredible naivety in some parts of the civil service where they're happy to brand people human rights campaigners and activists and overlook the things that they're actually been saying and doing. This man may have been one of the early celebrity activists in the Arab Spring and have gained some international acclaim for that. But he's not somebody who we should be welcoming into this country because he quite clearly doesn't share our values. And the tenuous link that he has through his mum, the fact that she spent a short amount of time here when she was a student back in the day, shouldn't be sufficient to absolve him for everything that he said more recently in his own life. If there's an opportunity to do so, I would call on the government to revoke his citizenship and send him back to Egypt, where he deserves to live.
Indeed. I mean, Robert, when you look at some of the tweets he's posted and think about people who've been locked up in Britain for, I would say, far less, actually, that it wouldn't warrant someone we want in this country. That's my opinion. But Robert, I want to show you...
On that point, Alex, look, we talk about two-tier Britain, but you've got comedians who get arrested at the airport for some tweets. You get people like Lucy Connolly, who did a reprehensible tweet, which she then regretted and deleted, who got sent down for 30 months in prison and spent 15 months of her life away from her family and her child because of that. And then this man actually gets welcomed into our country for saying things as worse, in fact, much worse. You actually get the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Foreign Secretary of the United Kingdom tweeting in unison as if this person is the Messiah. What is wrong with these people? As I say, they've either completely lost their moral compass or they were so ignorant that they didn't even know the man they were talking about. And I don't know which is worse. But either way, Starmer should delete that tweet, he should apologise, and he should try and prevent this man from living in the UK.
Certainly agree. I don't know if you've got two minutes, Robert, but we wanted to show you this clip, the scenes of Westfield in London just the other day. If you don't mind, we'll just roll that for you now.
Every time you buy a coffee, you are funding a bullet. That is killing a Palestinian kid. If you are a Muslim buying Starbucks, shame on you, and Allah is coming for you.
Robert, it worries me when I see scenes like this happening in our capital. It's obvious secularism. It's obvious, it's using religion to essentially radicalise people, in my opinion. What do you make of that clip?
Well, I almost don't recognise parts of our country at the moment. People should just be able to go about their business, go shopping, go to the sales on Boxing Day and after Christmas in peace in the way that they always did, without having these political conflicts constantly brought to people's doors, people rushing into shopping malls and ramming their politics down other people's throats. It's It's disgusting. It's a sad reflection on the country. And we've got to work much harder to stamp out this kind of extremism that's poisoning the political debate in our country and ruining people's lives. Because this isn't the Britain that any of us want to live in. We live in a great country. We can fix this. We can stop this rot that we're seeing at the moment. And we just need politicians with the courage to step up and face these people down.
Thank you very much for joining me. Robert Jenrick there, Shadow Justice Minister. Pleasure to have you on the show, Robert. Thank you very much.
Yeah, nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. A government spokesman said this. Mr El Fata is a British citizen. It has been a long-standing priority under successive governments to work for his release from detention and to see him reunited with his family in the UK. And we, of course, have approached Alaa Abd El Fata and his family for comment. I'm now joined by Nigel Nelson, GBNews' senior political commentator, who's joining me to talk about this. Nigel, Robert there saying he wants the Prime Minister to take down his tweet and apologise. Do you agree with him?
No, I do not. Look, this man was a political prisoner in Egypt. He's been a political prisoner on and off since 2006. You've had international organisations, including the UN and Amnesty, campaigning for his release. You've had English Pen giving him a Writer of Courage award. This man should be in Britain. He's a British citizen. As you've pointed out, citizenship given by the Tories. Successive governments have campaigned for his release. Now he is here. He is where he should be.
But Nigel, I don't know how we can allow a man who said these things into our country. And I've criticised both Tories and Labour about this. I think Alicia Kearns is absolutely wrong to call for him to be here. And I think James Cleverly was wrong to try and get this man brought over to Britain. We can campaign for free speech. I don't want to see anybody locked up for tweets. Quite frankly, I think it is a breach of your right to do so. Even though I find those tweets disgusting, I don't want to see people imprisoned for it. However, I don't want that man here. He is Egypt's problem. Why have we made somebody with his views our problem?
Because he's a British citizen.
But he wasn't. He wasn't a British citizen until 2021. Why did we do that? Why do you think we did that? What on earth have we got to gain from that?
Because he was a political prisoner. He had a son in this country, lives in Brighton. So it is absolutely right.
It's not our problem. Well, it's not our problem, Nigel.
Here's a man who
this is suicidal empathy.
Here is a man who was. Do you agree he was a political prisoner?
I do agree he was a political prisoner. I do. However, he did break the law in Egypt, and had he made those tweets here in Britain, he would have broken our laws. Right. So there are elements of what he did. If you're going to condemn Lucy Connolly and other people, we must also condemn what he did, and he spent time in prison. I don't think it's right. I don't agree. Lucy Connolly should have been in prison, by the way. So I'm very consistent on my views on this. However, what he said about Britain, about Jews, about killing US soldiers, in some cases, some of his tweets, shouldn't be allowed into the UK for that. We banned Geert Wilders, an elected Dutch official, for saying far less.
I agree that those tweets are disgusting, and they go back 15 years. So we don't know if those are his current views now. Now he's actually in Britain. I don't know. I certainly know that Keir Starmer, if he knew about those tweets, would never have endorsed them. The point
but why doesn't the Prime... This is the thing, Nigel, and I was saying this to Robert because, of course, I was talking about James Cleverly wanting to help this man. I was talking about Alicia Kearns wanting to advocate for him to be brought to Brighton. And this is the question I had for Robert, which is, why does this keep happening? Why are our politicians either so ill-informed that they go and advocate, and the Prime Minister used the word, he was delighted this man was here. That is a strong word. Now, if the Prime Minister is not informed, whose job is it to inform the Prime Minister, and why are they so bad at it?
The point is that he shouldn't have been in jail in Egypt in the first place.
Fine, that's not our problem.
Well,
why is it our problem?
It is if he's a British citizen.
But he was only made a British citizen after his imprisonment.
Yes, that's perfectly true. But he was made a British citizen.
But should we be making a British citizen of a man who said British people are like dogs and monkeys? That was one of the tamer things he said, by the way. Should we be making people like that a British citizen?
Given what he was campaigning about in Egypt, given his work during the Arab Spring, he was arrested for protesting, and he was constantly arrested for protesting, went on hunger strike. He would see himself as championing freedom. We saw it the same way, and that's why we gave him a home here.
Well, Nigel, we're both going to have to disagree on this one, unfortunately. I think this man should be, if he was on his flight, I'd say turn it around right now and send him back to Egypt, relinquish that dual citizenship, because that is a power, that's a thing we can do. If the Prime Minister really doesn't want this man in the country, he can take away his British citizenship. We do have the power to do that, seeing as he's still an Egyptian one, but I have a feeling all those human rights lawyers and all the lefties in the country will keep someone like that here, and I do not want them in this country. That is my opinion.